I really want to be intentional about why I'm doing this MBA and getting as much from every class. And every minute I can, I'm studying and focusing and meeting these people I'm lucky enough to be in the same program as. And so, again, bringing that intentionality to, again, choosing what I want to be doing and why I'm doing it has been really helpful, but also the challenge.
Welcome to another episode of the Intersection Podcast, brought to you by the Georgia Tech Scheller College of Business. I'm your host, Analisa Wade. I'm a first-year full-time MBA student here at Scheller. Today, we're going to talk about dual degree, what that looks like at Scheller College of Business. We have two students here, a first-year and a second-year MBA student that are pursuing dual degree programs here. And we're going to take a moment to get to know them, their journeys, and what the dual degree has done for them so far. Starting with you, Wyatt, can you tell us a little bit about your background, what brought you to Scheller, and what your dual degrees in?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I am Wyatt. I am a first-year MBA and dual degree with a Master's of Environmental Engineering. This is my second year at Georgia Tech, but my first year doing the MBA. And yeah, before this, I worked as a trash consultant. I actually loved my job. We just did solid waste things. And
I love that.
I wanted to enter private industry, and I knew that from my first day in the environmental engineering program. And they actually talked about this really cool dual degree program. Applied very early on, and it's been really rewarding and exciting to be here.
Awesome. So when you started your environmental engineering, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you started that program, you knew you were going to pursue dual degree at that time. It was a joint decision.
I didn't realize it was an option until they talked about it in orientation.
Ah,
And so, again, I feel like it's a big thing in academia generally, is that when you enter grad studies, it feels like it's industry vague and then academia is real, just because that's like the context you're in. I knew I didn't want to do academia. So when they said this business degree was possible and very aligned with my personal career goals, I explored it further, had a conversation with Emily Sharkey, who was amazing, and kept going.
wow, that's great. We're glad to have you here in the
Thank
MBA
you.
program. It's been awesome having you so far.
Thank you.
And Leah, what's your story?
Well, mine's very different, I would say. So I'm a dual degree, getting a master's in city planning and an MBA. So I started in planning, did that for a full semester, and then I actually did a competition. So it's called the Urban Land Institute Heinz competition, which also ironically I'm doing it again right now, and we're actually finalists this time, which is crazy. But it's basically a real estate competition where you work with a team of 5 and you find other students. So on my team, it's I forget the mix then, but it's like Masters of Architecture, Urban Design, City Planning, MBA. So interdisciplinary. In order to create a master plan basically in 2 weeks, and you're supposed to you get a real site. And then you go present to like a panel if you're a finalist. And there's like high stakes involved because there's a lot of money. So I met a student who's an MBA student, Francesca. And I mean, me and her just clicked right away. And I honestly saw how a lot of the things that she was bringing to the table were things that I felt like I needed and was missing. And for me, my personal goals are more around like development and city development, community development. And very quickly, I learned that understanding finance is very critical when it comes to that type of work. So I applied my second semester for the last round and got lucky. And yeah, now I'm here.
Wow, that's a very interesting journey. I think you both have different stories, different programs, and you bring something unique to the table. I think that's really cool. So, can you tell me a little bit more about what made you pursue these two different avenues? Not the dual degree, but specifically what you're into your first degree.
Yeah, so I did my undergrad in chemistry at Washington University in St. Louis, and they had one sustainability related class, and it was on geology. So not exactly the skill set that I wanted to or what I wanted to apply. I was really lucky that I found a small company that was doing sustainability work with materials and solid waste, and I loved that. I really, really did, working with different municipalities, companies, global tech companies, all with the goal of making their operations more sustainable and thinking about what are the effects of the use of material. But I still didn't have that core set of skills that I wanted to inform myself as a subject matter expert, as I knew I wanted to apply myself. And so I looked at different programs. Georgia Tech is very highly rated. And I also found this lab group, which is called the Social Equity Environmental Engineering Lab, led by the incredible Dr. Joe Bozeman III, and found a fit. They were looking for someone with circularity, solid waste experience. I had that. And the program has also given me more of an energy background to supplement my materials professional focus. And that paired with the finance and the MBA stuff, it's been a journey, but so many great people along the way who have collaborated with on very fascinating topics. So I don't know if that answers exactly your question, but
Yeah, definitely. And in the MBA, I know you can have concentrations. For you, is there a specific path that you've taken, or you're kind of a generalist, kind of getting a little bit of all business?
I'd say yes. And where the sustainability concentration is a great resource for people who want an introduction into sustainability topic and what that looks like within the private sector. But me, myself, growing up in Jamaica, I wanted to know what exactly it means to work internationally with a large corporation. So I took the international practicum and thinking about international business in addition to that. And also strategy is really interesting, which is another concentration. So I've been trying to like tap into all the different um, topics and areas of interest that I find while maintaining, again, that sustainability is at the core of my values as a professional and what I want to realize in my career. So yes, sustainability is still my concentration. I'm looking for others.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're just kind of exploring a little bit, but making sure you don't deviate too much for what you came for in the MBA program.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. And what about you, Leah?
Well, yeah. It's kinda crazy because I didn't even know planning was a thing until after undergrad. So, most of my life, I thought I was gonna be an architect. So, I went to high school for architecture. For undergrad, I went to Wellesley University in Connecticut, but I started engineering, and then it was in the architecture courses weren't robust enough, I would say, so I took them, ended up just doing math and American studies, and then found my way into a very different path of, like, marketing analytics and then teaching. So I was actually an educator for an independent high school, which I loved and recommend people to go teach because you just learn so many things. Um, and you really don't know anything until you've had to teach it to somebody else.
Yeah.
So I did teach math. I was in a community and equity team as well because it is a predominantly white institution. I mean, it was like half boarding and half day. And I was also an academic support center. So, well, and I missed a piece. So before that, I actually had quit my first job because I didn't feel fulfilled.
Mm.
So then I was like, I'm going to go back on the path of architecture and did a summer program at Harvard, design discovery. And that's actually where I learned about planning. So I
Okay.
had a conversation with a professor with the first day, and turns out that I actually wanted to be a planner, not an architect, because I care more about big picture city stakeholders, decision making, how things get connected and access versus like form and shape. Even though I do love like making models and yeah, I just love I love architecture still, but it's not what I want to do. So then yeah, I did the teaching job, which felt like I was doing planning, and that's kind of like what I pitched. And I was recruited actually. So I went through the Georgia Tech Focus Scholar program,
Okay.
which is essentially they fly you in for MLK Day weekend, and they're trying to diversify their both undergraduate and graduate programs. So I met the Department of Planning, and I mean they were great. Um, I met some students. Like I really felt like they cared about the work they were doing, um, and in the end, it was between that or MIT because I was in Boston and I wanted to leave Boston, so I feel like it was a clear choice. So I came here, um, and yeah, and again, like if math is my strong suit, stats, I used to teach stats, data, all of that. So I wanted to figure out how can I leverage that, but still make an impact when it comes to affordable housing. So in the end, like my core focus ended up being more around housing. So I did research with Dr. Laura Raymond my first year around like who's been buying single family homes in Georgia and Florida, but mostly like Fulton County. And then that got me to realize that very quickly I need to increase my business acumen
Yeah.
and like really learn how finance and money flows, right? Like how to fill capital stacks and gaps. Because in the end, development is run by money and what you're able to accomplish and build. So yeah, so they do complement each other. I wish more people did both degrees, to be quite honest, because it gives you better perspective of both sides of the table, like the community, but also the stakeholders and the people who are financing projects. And if you really think about it, businesses play a critical role in city development, and so does technology. Um, I mean, when cities come, that changes population. I mean, there's just so many intersections that happen between planning and business that people don't think about. So, if there's anything, it's made me a stronger candidate.
And in the MBA program, is it safe to say, I know you're wrapping up your second year, so is it safe to say your concentration is finance? Or am I making that
No,
up? No? Okay. So what's your
ironically, it's
concentration?
not. Yeah, it's not. I actually take most of the finance classes in the Master's in Real Estate Development program
Okay.
Mm.
because that counts as part of my electives for my land use. But I will say that I've been focusing more on strategy and supply chain. I think those two things matter a lot. So I'm more of like a generalist. So I just take
Okay.
classes that I feel like will make me feel more well-rounded about the future of business or like technology, and trying to bridge that gap between real estate, technology, and business. That's what I would say. And then international component as well. So I'm going to Singapore next week for a
Awesome.
project on sustainable development, building construction. So there are many ways where they complement each other. And a lot of the stuff I've learned in my MBA classes, I've actually leveraged in my planning classes and vice versa.
And the Singapore trip, is that through your MBA program or is that through your city planning program?
MBA.
MBA. Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. So you're able to kind of add new, unique experiences from the MBA at Scheller with city planning, and those kind of build off of each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's great.
So
Can you both talk a little bit more about how you plan on leveraging both degrees into your next steps, like in your career? I know you're a little bit further along since your second year, so maybe we'll start with you.
So I interned at Citibank this summer. I was in their personal banking and wealth management leadership development program, which was great. It was in New York, and essentially it was internal strategy, more around economic development, I would say. So I've also been interning at the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta on their community economic development team. Um, and it all connects, right? So I think having both degrees is what made me stand out. One, like my role at the Fed, I think for sure was because I was both planning and MBA, because there are actually a lot of people on our team that come from the planning program. But I think the MBA added that extra layer of understanding the market, and market analysis, right? Um, and then I think that opened up my opportunity for Citibank, because the project was around creating a value prop for their mass market bank account, which deals with a lot of things around community
Mm.
and economic development, like economic mobility. So post grad, I'll be there doing a rotational program. So so the idea is gaining skills, learning how banking works. I mean, well, I don't think people would know what this means, but like it was strategic in terms of like the bank is really good at some of the things I want to get involved in, which is like LIHTC, which is the largest way to fund affordable housing. Understanding banking in general, I think, is just critical to achieve my long-term goals, which is more around like becoming a developer, um, and like a director for like economic development somehow. I don't know to what scope, but I'm using both, leaning more on the MBA side to gain more of that leadership, decision making skills, and trying different sectors that I wouldn't have tried otherwise. And then see where it takes me from there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Like, it seems like your whole journey was very strategic. I could see how city planning and MBA works together and how you were at the reserve and now you're at city. It all kind of seems very cohesive. I commend you for that because a lot of people are kind of like, oh, I'm just going to do this, I'm going to do that. And hopefully it all makes sense and it comes together. But it seems like you thought that through and it was seems seamless, even if it wasn't.
Well, I
Don't,
think I did not think I was gonna end in city, it's like for sure, but I think things happen for a reason.
Mm.
And I love that I did do that because it was like it was almost too perfect. It was a good match for me. So like I even give the recommendation to students who are pursuing and looking for summer internships. It's like maybe you won't get something that you thought you wanted, but it's a two-side thing. Like a company also chooses you. So as long as you're a fit for that culture, which is very big for me, I think it'll work out the way it's supposed to work out,
yeah.
which is
No,
like my motto in life.
that's good. So it's kind of like it wasn't planned, but it all kind of made sense, and
Yeah,
you see how you fit into the overall strategy
exactly.
of
Like
city.
it's react in the moment, but be strategic as
Mm.
well, and then be open to new opportunities that come your way and be ready and keep that moving. Because even like my first semester, I would never have thought I was going to apply for an MBA ever.
I get
So
that. So Wyatt, moving on to you. I know you're in a completely different place than where Leah's at, so don't feel pressured at all. But wrapping up the first year, what are kind of your next steps, and how are you going to leverage both degrees?
First, I got to take a step and stop being awed by everything you're doing, your
but
experience, your projects. This is all so awesome. Yeah, and I'd love to talk about this more in depth when,
yeah, I'm surprised we haven't really met each other
yeah,
recently
Laura
because you have so
Raymond's
much.
dope. Like I
Oh
work with
yeah,
her at
I've heard.
SCORE. Yeah,
Oh, you did?
yeah, and we're building a net zero home in Vine City
Oh
for
wow. Oh, for the also you're in one of the.
Solo Decathlon.
Oh, you're in the solar. Okay, they're
Hmm.
trying to get us. I just have no time, but that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
hilarious because this happens often,
Mhm.
where people who don't know each other, they meet on the podcast and they become like,
Oh, really?
yeah,
No,
they
I'm
become
like even
their
the waste stuff.
backgrounds.
I was like that. Yes, waste is so critical
A
Mm.
lot of opportunity in that
and a
space.
lot of opportunity. That's why I say that the smartest person in our cohort is going to go work for Republic.
I landed with Dollar Tree, so I'll be
Oh wow.
building their supplier engagement playbook, which is, um, yeah, I think this is like brings me to how I approach this question is in that sustainability in business is very much budding. It's very much changing every month to month more than year to year. And so being in the opportunity to be in my education and have a diversity of projects I can take on within Georgia Tech through Scheller, through environmental engineering, through my lab, and through all the student-driven grassroots programs and projects like Solar Decathlon, like Net Impact, as well as like different collaborations that just spontaneously arise, is it's really, really valuable for me in being able to use that and then bring my whole self and whole set of experiences to all these opportunities, but particularly with Dollar Tree, where I'm going to have to work with their previous, what they've done to, and how they approach who their suppliers are and what their priorities are in building business cases around sustainability.
So wait, hold on really quickly because
Yeah.
I lost this part.
Mhm.
So how did you land at Dollar Tree, and then what exactly will you be doing there?
Yes.
Yes.
I applied to the Environmental Defense Fund, EDF Climate Corps program. And so that program places sustainability focused graduate students within nonprofits, city governments, or large companies. And so I did this last year with Walgreens, and it was amazing. I did construction, environmental analysis, as well as waste analysis, and kind of built out their reporting program uh, through tools and personal development. And then this year, I got placed with Dollar Tree, and I will be building their supplier engagement playbook for different areas of opportunity for decarbonization, but also tracking as well as incentives. So something I have had experience with at Walgreens when I was working with their manufacturers, but now I will be having to do that with something as complex and large as a retail chain throughout all of the United States. So this is the type of project I get really excited about because it's an opportunity to build and grow, but also have impact.
Wow. And is that going to be here in Atlanta?
That's going to be in remote, but with some site visits to Chesapeake, Virginia.
Oh, that's
Wow,
cool.
that's very cool. It's kind of like what I was saying before, very different experiences, but extremely strategic, like on how you're moving. I'm kind of like, dang, maybe I should do a do a
Eh.
degree. That's really awesome. So with you going to City and you going to Dollar Tree, what would you say was the most helpful course in your MBA program for you, Wyatt, so far, and then Leah, I guess overall?
Most helpful course.
Yeah, like where did you learn the most that you feel like you're going to be able to apply or that helped you land that opportunity?
I found myself really influenced by some of the entrepreneurial ideas and mindsets that I that Andre Calmon taught in Business Strategies for Sustainability, and then that he's been fostering with the Racy Anderson Center as part of the Sustain X competition, where they're very much experiment driven, which resonates with me as an environmental engineer and scientist, and being able to build something, especially where I am in sustainability, um, helps me figure out exactly how I'm going to be I'm tackling these large projects. So that that was really interesting, but also accounting.
Oh, really? Okay, explain that one.
um, it's the language of business, and
Mhm.
being able to go into financial reporting and understand
Mm,
exactly what it's telling you about
Mhm.
how a firm operates, where they're putting their money,
Yeah.
and what that means for their strategy, what's required. And then there are new, as of last Wednesday, going to be requirements about carbon accounting that are
Mm.
in the same financial documents.
mm,
And so the cost of accounting just for all these companies is going to go up like 21%. So where do we fit in that as professionals, and how do we use that to track companies' performance and how our society operates? I think it's really interesting, and I think Ryan Blanc is also a great professor who
Phenomenal.
yeah.
And now is that something you thought going into accounting that you were gonna, like, get from? Like or was it, "Wow, this is, like, fascinating, this really applies to my world."
I didn't know where to think about business before I started it, because I had experience as a consultant, but that really didn't teach me much about how businesses operate. Instead, it taught me how to do projects in with given certain constraints. And I think because of my background as like a math person and a science person,
and researcher.
yeah,
Honestly, that's the biggest skill set right there.
and has like showed me that like the numbers don't lie, and being able to make driven decisions and using data to understand things is how I learn and how I understand. I'm interested to hear if that's your experience or perspective as well. But yeah.
I'm trying to think, because I feel like since I'm a generalist, I just know a lot about a lot of things because of the spaces I've been, and like the research part, I think is huge. Um, like having to go through like producing research is a very useful skill in terms of like you have to. I mean, it's nothing like the business world, which is something that I actually got a lot of feedback on this summer. Was in research you have a long time
Yeah.
to do a deep dive and a lit review, and almost become like a micro expert in whatever you're trying to discover. um, and and you go in very vague, and you don't know what you're going to find, right? You don't have these pre conclusions of what you're looking for. And the whole data, I learned R and all these other data skills. um, and then having to produce a conclusion. So I think the consulting class that we have to take was very useful. Strategy, and then also the what's the name of this other class? Not Service operations.
Mm.
So the idea of like service as a product, service as a, what's the right word? Like instead of your product being your business, it's the service you provide.
Yeah.
So I think that, and learning about different business models as well, it like really did help this summer because one, you have to produce something for a client in an X amount of time,
Mm.
and it has to meet expectations. And then you also have to navigate. I was in such a large company where I had to work with many different teams, and also like navigate that you might not get what you need in time, but still have to move forward. And then thinking like through strategy and like really distilling it down to like 3 main recommendations, what they usually teach us, and then storytelling. So I think also the course where we have to business communications, where you just have to literally go in the front of the class and talk, was very useful.
And I could see that how, as a researcher, both of you trying to go from that, I have all these numbers, I have this data, I need time to kind of sit and process to make a decision right now, like how that would be extremely challenging. In my core group, we had a couple of people that have the dual degree and research background, and it was a struggle at first, just trying to. This is what we literally have 2 days to figure
To
this
figure.
out. Yeah, and we can't do any more research. There's literally no time. So it's just 2 completely different worlds. So I could see how the combination of both skill
Yeah.
sets is really like
Because in research you have to literally show that you exhausted
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
all
have to,
the options for research, versus like here you have to be strategic in what research you go for. And over the summer, like my boss, she was a great mentor. And I needed to hear it. She was like, "You need to stop. Like, so much. Keep going." So so yeah, it is hard, but it's a good skill to have too. So
I literally had that exact same experience. I put up a graph. I was tracking everything that came out of like a site every day, like in material in the waste stream. And my boss was like, "I don't care. I don't care. Why should we be tracking this?
Yeah.
What does it matter to our strategy?"
Mhm.
And that was like a earth-shattering moment for me, just kind of, and something that really did inform my future work in my MBA. So I feel that on a deep level.
So how do you balance those 2 mindsets of I'm taught to do things one way here in this program, but then in another program I'm taking simultaneously, I'm taught to think this way. How do you kind of find that fine balance?
Yeah, I think it's always been a process of me breaking out of my shell. Either me breaking myself or someone else coming to me and saying, "This isn't just not gonna work." And being genuine about who I am and bringing that into whatever project I am is really helpful for that, and being able to abandon my ego and being like, "This feedback isn't about my skills as a person or what I'm doing. It's instead trying to make whatever we're doing together the best version of what it could be."
Mhm.
And so that within my core group of having Shababa, who's like an incredible consultant, be like, "This modeling is ugly," and being like, "Yeah, but it's getting there." Yeah, and having the like research-backed expertise match the kind of the business needs
Mhm.
was definitely something that I've learned through the marriage and work together of these 2 programs.
I love that. That's great.
Practice. I mean, I say practice makes permanent. So I used to tell my students. And then just being strategic and understanding deadlines. And then I think what I do more of now is really sitting with the scope of the project, and like what are the like before I actually start the research, I will have to sit down and decide like what are my options, and then from there make a plan on like what makes like strategically choosing what I should be getting, and then moving forward, which before I didn't really do much of. So I think they end up balancing each other out in like a great way. um and I do appreciate the way you do it in business, because it's more real world
Yeah.
and more tangible and executed, right? Versus like a lot of research is just like, now now you're an expert in this. Okay, so but you never reach the it's very hard to reach the like implementation and
Mm.
like making it actually happen part, which is another big reason why I wanted to have more of that business acumen.
Now, in the dual degree program, what challenges did you experience? It seems like doing a lot of research, learning business, and the snap of a finger. What like challenges or hurdles did you experience like along the way, if any?
It's a lot.
If any, if any.
Some people breeze through.
It's not hard. It's not
It
easy.
must be nice.
Yeah, I know.
Time,
Yeah.
definitely time. We have an expectation. I have an expectation to do 15 hours of work. I mean, as everyone does with a GRA, for a project, and that's not my research. And my research, I'm lucky enough to lead myself and have a team that relies on me. And to both do what I'm contributing, but also lead the direction of that. And that takes time commitments, and something has to be sacrificed. It has been my sleep, but also I really want to be intentional about why I'm doing this MBA and getting as much from every class. And every minute I can, I'm studying and focusing and meeting these people I'm lucky enough to be in the same program as. And so again, bringing that intentionality to, again, choosing what I want to be doing and why I'm doing it has been really helpful, but also the challenge.
Okay. I understand that.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. Why? I mean, it's hard. It's really hard because I feel like I love learning, and the stuff I'm learning. That's why I tell people, like, also do something you genuinely do like and enjoy. So I actually do love the stuff I learned from planning and the classes that I end up choosing in the MBA. And I think that motivates you to put in more work and put in more time, because time is essential. And you just have to communicate very well with others. So, I mean, I basically tell any group that I'm on, I'm pretty clear about what I'm doing outside of this, like my other commitments. And like and then prioritizing, like, this gets a bit more of my time that I hold of like higher weight, or, uh, and then asking for help when I need it. So I think between all of those things, it's how I'm able to navigate it. But it's not easy. Like, it's not something I wish on people.
Yeah. If I could just add one thing about the last point you said about like talking with your group mates and projects. Yeah, I think it's been really fundamental in succeeding in an MBA program is that open communication of like, this is what I have going on this week, but this is also my skill set. Like if you need a certain area that aligns with my strengths, this is where I can do the best and have the most impact possible given our needs. But I won't have as much time to focus on X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, which is true. Yeah, that's why I tell people data, I can find it.
So just being transparent up front and knowing what your limits are and like what you can
And
do.
learning to say no.
Yeah.
Which is hard, has been very hard.
What's that like?
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to say no, honestly. But yeah, you just have to be you have to be intentional with what you are committing yourself to do.
Yeah. This has been great. I feel like I learned a lot. If you have any advice to a prospective student or someone maybe who's already here and wants to pursue a dual degree, what advice would you give them?
Do it. I mean, yeah, it's so hard, but I think the greatest growth and impact comes from like these interdisciplinary collaborations where nothing in this world is one dimensional, and we're all in a historical and societal context and that we work in, and having experience that shows you business in addition to what other skill sets you bring only helps you as a professional, but also a person. So I can't speak highly enough, but be careful.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you want to do it, just make sure you're doing it because you really love that other degree and feel like you need that other degree. It's not because it is hard, and I would say like you have to immerse yourself in both completely. So making sure that whatever that other dual degree is, that you want to be there, right? Does that make sense? Like, you don't just do it for the sake of doing another degree, or you feel like there's no other time to do it, because there's always time to do something else later. But as long as it matches your goals for the future, then I would say, yeah, go ahead to do it. But I mean, again, I wish more people did the dual degree that I'm doing, just because of like how beneficial it would be to creating like more equitable communities in general. And I mean, it's huge right now. Like we're having affordable housing crisis. There's some business. There's just so many intersections that you can do with my dual degree, even that your dual degree, that is needed in this world. And then I guess another advice I would also just give is go to the other side of campus. I feel like I'm so happy. I feel like that's one of my favorite things is the fact that the other degree forces me to be on the other side of campus, because there's so many resources at Georgia Tech that you literally would not know about otherwise if you just went to the MBA. So I'm constantly pushing my cohort to go there or like sending them things. But yeah, like I think that's also one of the great things is like it opens up your ecosystem on campus. And you meet a lot of other students that are also into the things you're into that you can, whatever, in the future, like build those connections.
That was great advice, both of you. I'm contemplating if a dual degree may be a good path for me or not. I'm not sure, but you gave great advice. Time, communication, and just balancing different connections from the different programs, which is great. Well, I hope you both enjoyed being here. And thank you for stepping on the Intersection podcast with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Intersection podcast. You can tune in on Apple, Spotify, or SoundCloud. Thank you for tuning in.